Wakanda forever. How are y'all doing out there? I am Marilyn E. Thornton. I work here at the United Methodist Publishing House, creating resources that use African American culture and history as a springboard for development. Now, we are coming to you from the studio at the house, as we like to call it. And we invite you to continue the conversation about Black Panther, the movie that has taken the world, and I do mean the world, by a storm. Audiences from Africa, Asia, and Europe are loving it. As a matter of fact, I took 20 students from Fisk University, and they all loved it as well. The film got me to thinking about what if there had never been any colonialism or slavery or the systemic oppression of people of color, especially Black people? What if women were treated as equal in all things? Did that happen in this movie? It made me think about where was the Garden of Eden and what would the world look like if the fruit of the tree had been vibranium and that we had been allowed to touch and consume. And it made me think about, does the kingdom of heaven look anything like the kingdom of Wakanda? How do people maintain a sense of who they are, their traditions, and heritage, even as they move into a scientific, technological, Afrofuturistic realm? Well, we have with us today Victor Leon Cyrus-Franklin. He's a pastor out in California. Victor Leon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful today. How are you?
I am good. So glad to talk with you.
Good. Yes, glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. What do you know about the Black Panther? What's your experience so far been with the Black Panther movie?
Well, I can say for us, we saw the film twice the weekend it came out.
Okay.
And so there was a tremendous amount of buzz and anticipation for the film, leading up into its release. And of course, being out here on the West Coast and being in the Los Angeles area, we could just sense the anticipation, amongst the community and the industry here for what was to come. But no one could anticipate how it exploded, that opening weekend with that kind of response and from the community here, but also, like you said, all over the world. I know for us as parents, my spouse and I, we went to see the film on Friday so that we try to get a sense of what the film is before we let our children see anything. But we had a group organized from our church to go on Saturday morning of the release. And it was just, the excitement was palpable, in the air. In terms of its effect on children, as you mentioned that, we took our son, he's 11, with one of his classmates, and he was born in Atlanta, Georgia. My family being from Tennessee and West Virginia, his mother's family being from Kentucky. So he has Southern roots, Black American. His best friend from school is Nigerian. His people from Nigeria. So they sat together, and I sat next to them the whole film, and they were just raptured with joy and emotion and with what happened in the film. And we recall even after the film when we went home, when they were playing as they do, and my son's friend stuck his hand in the air and he said, Asgard. And if you're familiar with comic book lore, in the Avengers and Marvel Comics, Thor is from Asgard. Thor is the god of thunder. And my wife said, no, not Asgard, Wakanda. And then he thought about it, and you could see the expression of revelation and joy come over his face. And he said, you're absolutely right, Wakanda. And he put his fist in the air. And to witness that kind of transformation with the potential from a film like this to speak a kind of joy and hope and imagination for folk connected to from the African continent. It's just a beautiful thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have two more people who have joined our conversation. Miss Amanishakhete James of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's an entrepreneur who travels the world to study holistic methods for healing Black people. She's a recent graduate of Fisk University, and her ancient healing teas business is just getting started, but she's ready to share her knowledge through a community garden and her Young Queens apprenticeship program. How you doing, Amanishakhete?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you are welcome. What was your first takeaway on the film Black Panther?
It was really beautiful to see so many African Americans portrayed in a positive light. So I think that was my greatest takeaway from the film.
Thank you. And we also have Dr. Tamara Lewis. She is an associate professor in the Perkins School of Theology at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. She is Pan-African, global, and womanist in her outlook on life. And so we just want her to come on in with the conversation, something that really struck her about Black Panther. How you doing, Tamara?
Thank you so much for having me, and welcome to all. Greetings to all. It's truly a blessing to have a conversation with you about this remarkable film. I've actually seen the film twice. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely wonderful to see, particularly as a historian who does work on various aspects of periodic history, but particularly the aspect that I'm working on for my second book project on African civilization. I think the book and I think the movie has been transformative for so many populations, because even though it's based on fiction and legend coming out of comic books, the legendary place of Wakanda is this pre-colonial, technologically advanced African civilization, I think resonates with people because it connects to the historical reality of ancient African civilization, of which we are systematically denied knowledge in mainstream curriculum. And so people are hungry for a knowledge of their history. They're hungry for that which they have been denied through imperialist-based curriculum and school teaching. And so to have a movie like this fills a gap, I believe.
Yes, indeed. What do you think about that, Victor?
Yeah, I think it absolutely fills a gap. I mean, one of the most important elements in formation, not just for young people, but for all people, is to have a sense of imagination, an imagination of what's possible. And imagination is very much informed by memory, what we can recall. And so this film is very rooted in African cultures and peoples and practices and spiritualities, you know, even in draws from many of those heritages and places throughout the diaspora. And so to imagine a world that we have yet to experience in some ways, especially with that kind of technological advancement. And so it provides seeds to learn about these different civilizations and cultures historically, but also presently, and to imagine a new and a different kind of world. And so it's, again, the transformative potential of the film, you know, is enormous. I also think it raises some important questions and some important problems to wrestle with that is great fodder for discussion as we do that imagining. But again, it's just a very important film at this space and time in this historical moment.
We've got some more people who've joined us in on the conversation about the movie Black Panther, which has taken the world by a storm. We have Cecilia Olusola Tribble, who is a community and organizational development coordinator for Metro Arts in the Nashville Office of Arts and Culture. She designs and leads programs that reduce racism and provide restorative justice, creating arts opportunities for minoritized persons through grants and education. And right now we also have with us Matthew Charlton, who is based in Nashville, Tennessee. In his role as the Assistant General Secretary for Collegiate Ministries of the United Methodist Church, he has visited college campuses and met with students all over the United States and the world. He has also taught theology at Methodist Theological School in Ohio. How are you all doing this afternoon?
Really awesome.
I'm doing great.
Excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you are welcome. I'm so glad to be, both of you to be here. I know you've gone to see the movie. What's your first takeaway that you want to talk about?
I love this movie so much. during February, I did my best to experience as much Black joy as possible. And I think for Black people, I had a good girlfriend to messaged me in the UK, and she's also a part of the African diaspora. And Frances was like, "What do you think of the movie?" And I said, "Every Black person on the face of the globe needs to watch this movie." Yeah, that's the first thing I'll say about it. I came away feeling very emotional for so many reasons, which we'll get into. But that's the first thing I'll say about it. I love it so much.
Yeah, I'm an action movie buff. I have to go watch these movies typically by myself because my spouse won't go with me. She doesn't like action movies. She's more drama, and This Is Us is her show. But this one, I was able to take my son with me. He's he loves the Marvel movies, and so we went and saw it on the IMAX screen. If you haven't seen this movie on a screen as big as the IMAX, it is phenomenal. The sound is amazing. You can't see the whole visual field because the screen's just so big. And it's an immersion into the art of this film that I think can't be mimicked in any other type of theater. So just the experience of going to the movie and seeing this movie in that format was tremendous. I know my son, who's 10 years old, about to be 11, couldn't sit still the whole movie. He was really into it. And it has in addition to being a tremendous action movie, it's a tremendous movie on culture, on a people, and as cultural commentary, I think it offers a lot.
We are so glad to be here again, still talking about the Black Panther movie that has taken the world by storm, that will surpass $1 billion in revenue, that's going to guarantee that we're going to have more of these kinds of movies. We have with us in the studio Reverend Joseph Tribble, who is the Dean of Resident Life and teaches at the American Baptist College here in Nashville, Tennessee. He's a deep thinker. He also writes Christian education literature for youth and young adults. We have with us, coming from Montgomery, Alabama, on the line, Idongesit Mkpong-Ruffin. She is the Department Chair of Computer Science at Faulkner University in Montgomery, Alabama. A native of Nigeria, she has lived in the States for many years, raising a daughter who became an activist for improved race relations on the campus of Vanderbilt University. And finally, we also have Mr. Damien Durr, Reverend Damien Durr, who is the Minister of Outreach at the Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. He is a prolific preacher and educator with the Marion Wright Edelman's Freedom Schools, and he also designs programs that engage youth and young adults. Hello, Damien.
Good afternoon.
All right. Hello, Idong.
Hello.
All right. And how you doing, Joseph?
I'm all right. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. All right. So let's keep going the conversation about, let's just talk about our first response to this movie. Who wants to go first?
Yes, about time.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first response. About time.
All right. About time. Yes, indeed. So what was it about time for, Idong?
I think the reflection of the excellence that is us, that is sometimes needs to be propped up by others, or there's a tendency to believe that standing on our own, we can't be as excellent as we are.
All right.
And finally, we have a movie that stood on its own and did not need that propping up.
So we not only have, when you look at the movie, you have this nation that's standing on its own, and then you also have the production of the movie, in which you have Black people who are in charge, who have done the writing, who are doing the acting, Black people from all over the world. You have even creating the costumes, Ruth Carter. I know the first time that I ever saw anything she does was in a Spike Lee movie. All right, and now here she is, with in a movie that has this big budget. So it was great to see that coming for someone else.
And I'll say, in light of superheroes, looking at the trend of content that's been created from 16, really Ava DuVernay, and then Nate Parker, and then Fences, and then Hidden Figures. So a continued trend of our narratives sharing particular pieces, which for me, as I kept talking about Hidden Figures, talking about superheroes and sheroes that didn't get that weren't created in a lab and an explosion. And so when you think about the Marvel Universe, all of the superheroes and sheroes, Wonder Woman, Captain America, Batman, Superman, Incredible Hulk, finally a narrative, because we've been superheroes without all of that. So for me to see that on screen as well, and then the Black Panther's ability coming from, I read something that said his ability coming from skill, inheritance, and from the earth, very different even than the creation of other superheroes. So I think that combined with what Africa has meant to the world in providing so many resources, and so many resources obviously being exploited from the continent. So to see it on screen in terms of what Wakanda represents, but then the people and the actors and actresses there, and the intentionality behind, I think, offering a very intentional counter narrative to the way in which the Marvel Universe has been shaped, because it's been shaped in the image of whiteness forever. So for me, it was just refreshing in terms of the hues of blackness that was on screen, as well as the costumes and all of the other intentional pieces of African culture that were woven into what we saw.
Well, I guess what I will say about the film is, along those same lines, one of the thought that I've had is blackity black, black, black. And what I mean by that is, obviously, as we talk about black actors, we talk about black production, all the way down to even where parts of the movie were shot, being shot at Tyler Perry Studios. And so to see the infusion of blackness on screen, but also behind screen, that then enabled that which was taking place on screen to come to life, to share that narrative of a lack of exploitation, a narrative in which obviously you have vibranium that is there and is the main source of their strength and their power, their might, but also obviously taking that and putting that in conversation with what Africa has had. What was mentioned before was Coltrane, but thinking about the gold, but the people obviously that have been taken from Africa down throughout the ages, and to think about resources and the way in which they ultimately get yielded and positioned to create power, and that these people in Wakanda then decided to say, we're going to tell our own story, we'll tell our own narrative, and even if that means shielding ourselves from the rest of the world, we have a right and a duty to protect that which has been gifted to us. And seeing that, I guess, from a perspective of even, thinking about the varied gifts that people and groups of people have, and their ability then to protect those gifts and to use those gifts ultimately for their own benefit.